What's going on, Not Move Nation? Welcome to the Not Move podcast. Today is October 23rd at 3:03 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm here with a very special guest. KT is in the building. Thank you for joining today, man. Glad to have you on the show here. I also want to give a big shout out to our supporters, followers, and subscribers. Also, thanks to our sponsors, MyBookie.ag, BetUS, Walmart.com, Open Goal, and the NFL and MLB Pro Shops. So today, we are going to break down that Minnesota Vikings at Los Angeles Chargers Thursday night football game for tonight. Now, Minnesota leads the all-time series 8-7 against the Chargers. Minnesota is 2-1 all-time against the Los Angeles Chargers. Carson Wentz has a 1-0 career record against the Chargers. Herbert is 1-1 against the Vikings. And this is a very interesting statistic that I saw. Carson Wentz has a 7-0 all-time record in Thursday games, and I think all of them were Thursday night football games. Also, an interesting stat that I saw is that Keenan Allen has a 1-5 career record against Minnesota. Last I checked, the Chargers are favored to win this game by 3.5 points. The over-under being 44.5 points. KT, what are your first thoughts about this game, man? Are you leaning towards the Vikings, the Chargers, the over-under total points in this game? How are we feeling?
The first thing I like is the under. I'm taking under 47.5 points. I think even though I've seen, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, as you mentioned before we got on the show, was able to carve up that defense. I think this is going to be a game where they're going to come at each other pretty hard. It's a primetime game. Both teams are coming off a loss. Herbert, obviously we know he's a very good passer, very good pocket passer, tall, strong QB, knows how to move around in that pocket. But my biggest concern is his O-line. His O-line has not been playing well this season for me. They're apart from the first game against the Chiefs, that O-line has not really protected him. And going up against a Brian Flores defense, it's going to be a little bit tough. I don't think he'll have as much time as he needs to throw in that pocket.
Yeah, you make a great point, man. I'm seeing that the Chargers rank 25th in team sacks allowed per game, so they're not protecting their quarterback very well. On the flip side, the Vikings are not either. The Vikings rank 30th in team sacks allowed per game. Overall, though, I do give Minnesota a slight sacks on the quarterback advantage. And, teams were 10-3 on the money line in week 6. In week 6 when I gave them a sacks on the quarterback advantage. Last week in week 7, teams were 9-6. So, that just kind of goes to show you, at least in the past 2 weeks, how much that sacks on the quarterback data can mean for these teams. Now, in regards to like player props or something like that, where are you thinking right now? Well, let's start with injuries first. You told me before the show, KT, that Aaron Jones
is back. That's a big thing for the Vikings. Like I saw Adam Schefter post. I was like, and I'm thinking, man, the way that defense has been struggling against the run game, Jones could have a big game here. Jones could have a really, really big game here against the Chargers. And if the Vikings get that running game going, I definitely give them the edge. Their plus 3.5 is going to look like plus 25.5. I'm telling you, if they get that run game going, it's going to be extremely tough for Chargers to come back, because then the run game going for the Vikings and they get points on the board early. Herbert not being protected. We know that Brian Flores defense loves to blitz the quarterback. They blitz the quarterback more than anybody else in the NFL right now. So they start to blitz and they hit home. It's gonna be tough. It's really gonna be tough. We know the Chargers game is struggling. They got injuries to their 2 running backs. They've been asking around the league for running backs. It's gonna be a little tough, especially this particular week against that Brian Flores defense. If they do win this game, it's definitely going to be on the O-line.
Yeah, you make a good point talking about that rushing game. Yeah, unfortunately, the Chargers are without Hampton and who's that other guy? Najee Harris, and even Hassan Haskins is out tonight with a hamstring issue. So they are down to really working with Kamani Vidal. So, when I'm looking at both of these teams in regards to the rushing yards per game and rushing yards allowed per game, I do give Minnesota a slight rushing advantage in this game, especially, now that Aaron Jones is coming back. For people that are interested in player props for either of these running backs, I would really look to see if Aaron Jones is going to be limited at all in this game. Just because he's back doesn't necessarily mean that he, will get a full workload or even split, the normal carries that he usually does. But, somebody that I was looking at to actually have a decent rushing game for the Vikings is Carson Wentz. His over-under was 12.5 rushing yards last that I saw. He's gone over that in 2 out of 4 games this season. He went over that in his only career game against the Chargers. Do you think Wentz maybe picks up those rushing yards? Do you have any?
Yeah, you know what? I think he definitely could. But watching Carson Wentz, for me personally, has been an experience. I watched that game. He was falling on the floor, throwing it away. I was like, what is Wentz doing? And then all of a sudden, it just clicks for him. Boom, this pass. I was like, Carson Wentz, watching you play is a serious experience. So I'm thinking, 12.5, that's like Vegas is giving you a huge deal there. Like that's easy because he likes to move around in the pocket. If it's not there, he likes to get away. If Chargers defense can dial up a few pressures against him as well, it's gonna force Kevin O'Connell to definitely put some of that quarterback draw to get to, especially on short yardage situations.
And a big reason why I mentioned Carson Wentz's rushing yard total is because the Chargers have allowed the 3rd most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. Also, for an anytime touchdown prop, I was thinking about Jordan Mason, but with Aaron Jones back in the mix, I don't know too much anymore. But here's why I was thinking that is because the Chargers have allowed the 2nd most rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. So
if I was, I like the player prop. I would go both Jordan Addison and Jones to get touchdowns. They give up 3 touchdowns to Jonathan Taylor. They have no answer to stopping the running game. None at all right now. And that's a little bit concerning for me because if you're going to win football games, you got to be able to stop the run. You cannot have running backs just running it down your throat like that. They got to find a way to put up. So it's like when you started the show, we said a slight edge towards Vikings. I've been a Chargers fan from the start, but as the season has gone along, it's kind of like, you have that girlfriend who breaks up with you, get back with you, break up with you, get back with you. That's all they've been doing. They've been breaking my heart over and over and over. So I'm in a point now, I'm looking at it like you got Justin Herbert, one hell of a quarterback, but the O-line is shaky. They rush defense isn't good. I know it's a primetime game. Carson Wentz, do you really trust him in tight situations to not turn the ball over? Do you trust him to put it in spaces? Can Chargers defense dial up enough pressure? But I'm looking at it. If they can get the running game going early, the Vikings, I can't really see the Chargers having a good time here, especially time of possession is what's going to be big here. If the Vikings can run the ball efficiently and effectively, hold the ball for longer periods, 8-minute drives, 7-minute drives, it doesn't give that Chargers offense enough time to go back and score. So let's say they get off first. Then they hold the ball 8 minutes and score, 9 minutes and get 3. I see it being real tough for the Chargers in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, that's something that we definitely need to touch up on here is the passing game. I do give the Chargers a passing advantage. So even though that I think that Herbert will be under a little bit more pressure tonight than Wentz, simply because the Chargers rank 3rd in passing yards per game, whereas Minnesota ranks 17th in that category. Both of these pass defenses are very similar in regards to passing yards allowed per game. Minnesota ranks 7th best. The Chargers rank 8th best. Also, both of these teams call a high percentage of passing plays. The Chargers call the 3rd most percentage of passing plays, and Minnesota calls the 9th most passing plays in relative to the other teams in the league. So, I think that pressure on the quarterbacks will be definitely huge tonight. And
into this game, if you are Kevin O'Connell batters and you're looking at it, Chargers don't have a good run defense. You are definitely going to look to get your run defense up. Right now, the Chargers, I feel they really have to pass the ball a lot more because their running game isn't there. Like Vidal is trying, but he's not your Saquon Barkley, your Derrick Henry, your Jonathan Taylor, your Bijan, your Christian McCaffrey. He's really trying to get in there, so they have to pass the ball because their most dangerous weapon is definitely going to be Ladd McConkey, Keegan Allen, Johnston with the long ball, and Herbert throwing the ball. My thing is the O-line. If Brian Flores, and I mean, we've seen stranger things happen in football. You can go out there and say, statistically, this is what's supposed to happen, and Justin Herbert go out there and throw for 400 yards, 4 TDs, and we just there like, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? But looking at it, I would ask you this question. Do you believe that Justin Herbert's passing ability and offensive weapons in his wide receivers is overall better than Carson Wentz and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison right now? That's the question.
It's close. It's close. But overall, I think the advantage with Minnesota's rushing attack is bigger than the advantage if the Chargers even have that passing advantage. I think it's the Minnesota rushing advantage is greater than the Chargers passing advantage here. And I think really what it comes down to is those injuries, like you talked about at the start. You know, the Chargers are down those running backs. So I think really, you know, the X factor in this game is Vidal for the Chargers. Like if he gets going, man, the Chargers, you know, can put the Vikings on edge here. But I don't know if that's going to happen. You know.
So what is Justin Jefferson's effect in this game? He's been a little bit quiet these past couple of games. I'm expecting him to have a breakout game sometime soon. Do you think it could come this Thursday?
Yeah, I think it could, man. So his over-under on receiving yards, last that I saw, was 81.5. He went over that in only 2 out of 6 games this season. Half of his games last season. But he has gone over this in 2 out of 2 career games against the Chargers. So he has favorable history against the Chargers going over this receiving line. Also, he has scored a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against the Chargers. He leads this Minnesota Vikings offense in target share. So, you know, is this the game? Yeah, I could see it happening because, the Chargers – when I was looking, they weren't necessarily great or terrible at defending receiving yards and receptions allowed to wide receivers. So I could see him, having a good game in this one. As far as like a really good game, it's just something that I have to look up to see what he did in those previous 2 games against the Chargers. If I remember correctly, he had 150 plus yards receiving in both of his career games against the Chargers. Let me double check that. 149 yards in his most recent game, which was in 2023. He had 149 yards and a touchdown, 7 receptions against the Chargers in 2023. And then let me go check that other game log here. 2021, 143 yards again, receiving, no touchdowns. So he had 140 plus receiving yards. You know, obviously, I think maybe his quarterback was probably a little bit better at those times, Kirk Cousins. But yeah, man, I mean, I kind of view Carson Wentz as the same type of quarterback. Maybe not as good as Cousins, but you know, it's arguable. But yeah, man, I would have to lean towards him having a pretty good game here. What are your thoughts? Do you think he does pretty good tonight?
I think he's due for a breakout game. Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of technical difficulty with the video right now.
Oh, you're good.
Due for a breakout game. What I'm looking at here is his connection with Carson Wentz. The past 2 games I've watched with the Vikings, it doesn't seem like how Joe Flacco was very dependent on Ja'Marr Chase. I don't see them allowing Justin Jefferson to get into those one-on-one situations where he is allowed to go up and get the ball. So I'm thinking he is due for that. So maybe after what Ja'Marr Chase just did, maybe JJ, wide receivers are a little emotional. We might gonna say, hey, I need to get the ball in my hand. And if they can get that run game going, where they have to stack that box and there's more man-to-man coverage and one-on-one situations, that's where I see Justin Jefferson having a good game. But again, I don't want to go with a lot of ifs. My biggest concern in this game is the Chargers O-line.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I would probably lean towards Justin Jefferson going over the 6.5 receptions more than the receiving yards. I mean, I think both could hit, but he's gone over the 6.5 receptions in 2 out of 2 career games against the Chargers. So, and I heard you mention something about Jordan Addison. He ranks 3rd on this team in target share, but missed some time. So that could even get, higher in this one. He's gone over that 54.5 receiving total, 2 out of 3 games this season. But he didn't go over that against the Chargers. Do you think Jordan Addison gets 55-plus receiving yards tonight, or maybe some Jalen Nailor, over the 16.5 receiving yards?
I could see Nailor over 16.5. I could see Addison maybe 35.5, 34. I don't think he might hit 50 because, again, if they would have to be as strong, and it's a big if, Chargers would have to stop the run. And based off of how Chargers run defense is, I see Addison getting more rushing yards today than receiving yards.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then on the flip side, I expect the Chargers to have to pass the ball and not only possibly be forced to pass the ball near the end of the game, but that's what they like to do. They like to pass the ball, even though Minnesota's rush defense is more vulnerable in regards to yards allowed per game. I think, that's where the Chargers are going to try to focus on is this passing attack. What are your thoughts on Keenan Allen tonight, man? His over-under is 49.5 receiving yards, but the Vikings rank 3rd best in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers, and nobody allows fewer receptions to wide receivers than Minnesota.
That's a big stat. I think, to be honest with you, Keenan Allen, I think that's a little high for him, this particular game, because I believe in this particular game, they're going to try to get as much yardage as they can. I don't see a lot of short yardage situations really happening for Keegan in this game. I think Ladd McConkey and Johnson down the field is where the Chargers are going to look to go, especially if the blitzes come in. He's going to try to get that ball out of his hand as fast as possible up the field.
Now, I heard you mention Quentin Johnston. So when I'm looking at Minnesota's opponent yards per completion, they rank 21st. So Minnesota's pass defense is allowing a good chunk of yardage when teams are completing passes against them. Quentin Johnston ranks 1st on this Minnesota Vikings team in yards per catch and 22nd in the NFL. So what you're telling me with Quentin Johnston, finding him down the field, and what I'm looking at here on this sheet tells me that he's in line for a decent game here. And I think there is a good chance he goes over that 48.5 receiving yard line, especially after you telling me what you just did. He's gone over that in 4 out of 6 games this season. Now, he only went out over that in 3 out of 16 in 2024, and he went under that line in his only game against Minnesota throughout his career. But he ranks 3rd on the team in target, I don't know if it's target share. I got red zone target receiving target share here in my notes, but I think he could definitely break out for a good.
I can see him probably doing 70 yards because, again, what I've seen them use Johnston for, that speed down the field. I've seen Herbert and the Chargers use him going down the field to get the yard, like a chunk of yards out of it. Those big plays, they always seem to go to him. Ladd McConkey can definitely hang around in there. And I'm thinking if they blitz a lot, because we know Brian Flores, they love to blitz. They be blitzing a lot on the quarterback. If that O-line can just hold up a little bit, 1 or 2 of those chunk plays could be really, really big for the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And McConkey, I could see him going over that as well. My favorite player to go over their receiving yards. Now, I just want to give some Keenan Allen statistics real quick. I know you said that you don't think that he's going to be as involved in this game, but he's gone over the 49.5 receiving line in 4 out of 4 career games against Minnesota. Now, that's not a whole lot of receiving yards, right? But for those that are interested in possibly playing Keenan Allen tonight, he's a perfect 100% to that over in 4 career games against Minnesota. And he actually had his single game receiving yard record against Minnesota in 2023. He had 215 receiving yards against Minnesota. I know this is in 2025 and things have changed, but that is good history. He scored 2 out of 4. He scored a touchdown in 2 out of 4 career games against Minnesota. He ranks first on the team in red zone receiving target share, which ranks 14th best in the NFL. He's tied for 4th in the NFL in total red zone targets. I kind of like Keenan Allen to go over that receiving line today and possibly get a touchdown. I said that in his last game. The question is can he duplicate that? Can he do it back-to-back times? The fact that you're not so high on Keenan Allen makes me feel a little uneasy about it. But I think, the receiving yards is low enough to where he can get that. And then I would say the odd man out in this one's going to be McConkey. So I would lean towards probably Keenan Allen going over the 49.5 receiving yards first, and then Quentin Johnston, and then McConkey. But, maybe they all go over. It's football. Anything can happen. But just based on the statistics, it sounds like you were the most high on Quentin Johnston having a pretty good game. And McConkey, I'm thinking McConkey and Johnston and Keenan Allen. So maybe, it's going to be Johnston if we're both on that Johnston train here. And then,
I do believe, though, a lot of people, if people are looking at a player prop, anytime TD score today, Justin Herbert
rushing for 1.
Definitely see it. If they get down there and he can't find that pass, he the way he be moving in that pocket, if he finds an open spot, I can't see him getting a TD for himself today.
That's a sleepy pick right there. And I got a sleeper pick that I kind of like in this one too. Tight end for the Vikings, Josh Oliver. He's the second. He has scored the second most touchdowns on the Vikings. Now, he's only scored 2 touchdowns, and I don't think, he has too many receptions. But I could see the Vikings, down there in the red zone and, fake handoff and find Josh Oliver for, an anytime touchdown. But that's a hot take. That's a long shot. This Gadsden guy, tight end for the Chargers, has been doing pretty good. His over-under on receiving yards is 43.5. He ranks 4th on the Chargers in target share. He's a rookie, so it's tough for me to kind of pinpoint rookie player props because I don't have a lot of data to work with. Minnesota has done good at defending against tight end receiving yards and receptions this season, but Gadsden has gone over that the 43.5 receiving yard line and 4.5 reception line in 3 out of 5 games this season. Do you know much about him, KT? Do you think, Gadsden is somebody that people should, consider with their player?
Consider it. Again, Chargers is very much a passing game right now. So when they can't find the big plays or they can't find anything open, he always finds his tight end. Gaston has been doing pretty good for them. He's become a reliable guy. And that's something that NFL coaches and quarterbacks depend on, a reliable guy. Kind of like Jake Ferguson for the Dallas Cowboys. They're reliable. So I can see him getting maybe 30, 40, 50 yards today. And what you did mention, at anytime TD, that is actually a real option. I didn't look at that, but I'm actually going to have to look back at my player props and dip in a little bit on that because that's a very, very good call.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think, the Chargers went to Gadsden a whole lot against the Colts. Okay, so McConkey had 15 targets. Keenan Allen had 14. Gadsden had 9. So he was the third most targeted player, but he had the most receiving yards. So yeah, I think he's worth a consideration here. I think the biggest vulnerability I see with the Minnesota Vikings defense is rushing yards allowed to running backs. So that's why I was saying at the beginning, I think Vidal, it's going to be so important for him to be able to run effectively. Will he be able to or not is another thing. And then for the Chargers, their biggest positional defensive vulnerability is the rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. Now, I already mentioned that I do give the Chargers the passing advantage, Minnesota a rushing advantage. When we're talking about anytime touchdowns in red zone attempts per game, I have to give Minnesota an advantage here. So the problem with the Chargers is that they have, when they enter the red zone, they are not scoring touchdowns. They rank 31st in the NFL, so second worst in converting touchdowns when they enter the red zone. So, I think that's a problem. So Minnesota, I give them that advantage. And the Chargers are allowing their opponents to enter the red zone on them quite often. They rank 25th in that category. So, I give Minnesota those advantages there. Chargers have been doing better on third downs. And I give the Chargers a slight turnover differential advantage. But overall, I like Minnesota plus that 3.5 in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Minnesota win. I cannot go against the fact that Carson Wentz has a 7-0 all-time record in Thursday games, which I think were all Thursday night football games. And then once again, Keenan Allen, 1-5 career record against Minnesota. And I think, Minnesota's good enough to hang around in this one and keep it close. If they do lose, I don't think, that they will lose by more than 3 points. So
I think the biggest thing is if for Chargers to win this game, they have to affect Carson Wentz. If they can affect Carson Wentz, I give them a big edge to win this game. The problem is I don't see Kevin O'Connell putting Carson Wentz in a situation, given how weak the Chargers' rush defense is. They're going to run the football a lot in this game. And then they're going to go to the play action pass when those man-to-man situations start to open up.
Yeah. So I think for an anytime touchdown score, I don't know, man. I'd probably just have to, go Jordan Mason. I did mention that the Chargers have allowed the second most rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. He's the touchdown leader on the Vikings. I think with Aaron Jones possibly being in this game makes that play a little bit more shaky. But that's who I would have to go with. Who's your favorite anytime touchdown scorer in this one? I think you already mentioned a couple guys, but who's your favorite?
Johnston, definitely Johnston. Johnston end zone. He gets down there fast. They throw the ball to him. He has those out-breaking routes that speed down the middle. I've seen them use him a couple times, and he gets down there. He gets in the red zone. He actually scored, I'm not sure a lot, but I think in most of their games, he has scored a touchdown now. Seems to be one of their favorite targets to get in the red zone, or even when they in the middle of the field, open it up to get him in the red zone.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day. So yeah, man. So I know before the show or during the show, you mentioned that you liked the under 47.5 total points, which last that I saw, the over under was 44.5. So maybe it's increased, or you're teasing it up a little bit. And that was my natural instinct too. When I looked at this game, I thought, oh man, this is going to be a barn burner. But when I looked at the data, I saw that 8 out of the last 10 matchups between these teams had 45 plus total points. Minnesota has actually been 5-1 to the over this season. The Chargers are 3-4 to the over this season. So I personally am staying away from it, but you seem, pretty confident in it. And, do you still have that outlook on this game after we just talked about all that information? Do you still feel good about the under 47.5?
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be one of my single tickets for the day, under 47.5. If I do carry it up, I'll probably do under 48.5, depending on what the odds are. But looking at the game right now, I can't see a reason why I would go away from it, because if Kevin O'Connell goes up early, I can see him definitely holding on to the ball and time of possession a lot longer than the Chargers would like.
Yeah, for sure, man. And you know, I just, once again, I know I keep saying this, but I cannot go against the fact that Carson Wentz has a 7-0 all-time record in Thursday games. So for me, it's Minnesota or nobody in this game. I am not going against a trend like that. Herbert has a 2-2 record on Thursdays, and the Chargers have won back-to-back primetime games. They had a primetime game week 1 and in week 2. They won both of those games. They have to lose a primetime game at some point, right? I think maybe not, but here's a spot where I think that they do. But yeah, Minnesota plus the 3.5 is my favorite play today out of football and basketball. And I think there's a decent chance Minnesota can win. I've even thought about taking Minnesota in my Survivor. I'm still alive in the Survivor. I've gone, this is week 8 now. So my concern is that Minnesota is the underdog, and I could pick, the Chiefs or something like that throughout the week. I was thinking about Philadelphia, but I mean, if I'm feeling antsy, I mean, I might do it on the Vikings here, but I think that's a little risky, on an underdog. But anyways, what else? I'm trying to see if we haven't talked about anything else, or if we missed anything here. Do you have any other thoughts about this game, KT? Don't know if you had to step away for a minute. If you're trying to talk, we can't hear you, but that's all right, man. So I think that'll wrap it up for this session. I'll see you guys at the latest Sunday morning. We've been doing a show every Sunday morning for the NFL games. I don't think I'll have time to do an NBA show tomorrow or Saturday. Unfortunately, I did an NBA show earlier today. If you guys are interested in the NBA, feel free to go check that out. Once again, I want to thank our supporters, followers, subscribers. You guys mean a lot to us, and we couldn't do this without you. Also, thanks to our sponsors, MyBookie.ag, BetUS, Walmart.com, Open Goal, NFL, and MLB Pro Shops. Well, good luck tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining. KT, it was great to have you on the show, man.
Great to be here.
Yep. Thank you so much, dude. And yep, we'll talk to you later. Good luck, guys.
All right.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.